It's great to be with you guys. BYU has a soft place in my heart. Pretty much anything BYU asks me to do, I try to accommodate. I specifically like to come back and speak in these lecture series and tell my story, because I think it's kind of an interesting story. It's definitely not the way I drew it up. But I think I can share with you some of my failures and mistakes, and hopefully you can learn from those so you don't go down the same path. I remember sitting where you're sitting. It was about 15 years ago. And I remember, like many of you, I was extremely bullish on my future. I had my 5, my 10, my 15-year goals all written out, laminated on my wall, like many of you probably do. You know, I was, without a doubt, going to be a millionaire by my late 20s, multimillionaire by my early 30s, and then I'd continue to build my fortune and legacy from there. Unfortunately, it didn't go as planned. My 20s and early 30s were a disaster from an entrepreneurial standpoint. It was just a complete non-starter. Everything I tried failed, and I just had a complete misconception of what life had for me, had in store for me. And that's the one thing that I can share with you. You know, if a lot of you are probably A-type personalities, you like to plan everything out. You've already written your story probably in your mind. I hope you have. But with almost certainty, I can tell you it's not going to go the way you expect it to go. There are trials and obstacles coming your way. You just have no idea they're coming, whether it's a death in the family, somebody gets sick, the economy changes. And so you're going to be forced as you go through your career to dig deep and to reevaluate and reexamine your life and your priorities. And you'll have to pivot several times before you start to actually accomplish your goals. But I want to encourage you to stick with it. After I tell you my story, you'll say, man, if that guy can do it, anybody can do it. I can do it. So stick with it, because I promise you, when you get your first success, if you can just hang on long enough for your first success, being a successful entrepreneur is absolutely as advertised. The freedom that you enjoy, the invitations that you receive, the introductions that come your way, the associations. I mean, successful people want to be around successful people, right? It's just a fact of life. Success is what we're all striving for. However you define success, everybody on this planet wants to be successful. It's the getting there, right? That's the hard part. You guys are entrepreneurs. How many of you have plans of how you're going to get there? How many of you know how you're going to get there already? 2? That's the hard part, and that's what I wanted to focus on today. I'm going to spend the better part of this hour talking about my failures, because that's the best way that I can help you. That if I can share some of the mistakes I made, you can avoid those. But it'd probably be helpful to walk backwards. So Jeff mentioned some of the things I'm a part of already. But if I can share with you some level of credibility, hopefully you'll listen a little closer. The first company I'm involved with is called Complete Merchant Solutions. Like he said, you may recognize this building. It's just off the freeway. CMS is in the payment space. So if you think of PayPal or Stripe or Square, we're in the same industry. I co-founded this company about 8 years ago. And in that time span, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of technology disruptions. And so we've had to evolve and innovate. And we're actually going through the process now of rebranding to something with a little bit more of a modern feel called SlicePay. If you're not innovating in business, you're slowly dying. You just don't realize it. This company has grown year over year in the 8 years that we've grown it. We currently have about 40 employees, and we've been recognized twice by the Inc. 500 as one of the fastest growing companies in the nation, and we'll do just over $60 million in revenue this year. Second company I'm involved with is the 4 Foods Group, or Kneaders. They're the primary development arm for Kneaders Bakery. And I don't spend my days at FFG, but I take great pride in this company, because when we met those guys, they were early in their growth cycle. They just had a handful of locations, and we gave them everything we had, all of our savings, because we believed in them. And today, as Jeff mentioned, they have 28 locations in Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Nevada, with 25 more slated to go. Over 2,000 employees at FFG. They'll do over $75 million in revenue this year. And they've been recognized by the Inc. 500 4 times. So this one's close to my heart. And then we started a couple years ago a SaaS-based company called ControlPad. ControlPad builds web and mobile applications for the direct sales, nonprofit and service industries. And although this one's taken a little bit longer to get off the ground, I actually think this one has the greatest potential. Okay, so that's where I'm at today. In a minute, we're going to go back about 15 years, so where I was sitting, where you guys are sitting. But before, I wanted to go through a quick video, and you'll have to forgive me. It's a little rah-rah. All of the imagery is sports-related, so if you don't like sports, don't doze off, because if you listen to it, the narrative is about life. It's about sacrifice and struggle and setting goals and digging deep to figure it out.
There will never be a point in your time in your life where it's the right time to do a great thing. If you're waiting for that perfect moment, that perfect time, it's not going to happen. You know what you have to do? You have to create the perfect time and the perfect opportunity and the perfect situation. So a lot of people become comfortable. They stop growing. They stop wanting anything. They become satisfied. People getting ready to go to jobs that they don't like. Jobs that are making them sick. You see, when you're not pursuing your goal, you are literally committing spiritual suicide. When you have some goal out here that you're stretching for and reaching for that takes you out of your comfort zone, you'll find out some talents and abilities you have that you didn't know you had. When the messenger of misery visits you, what are you going to do? What will keep you in the game? There are things that you think you'll never need to know, that you may only need to know one time in your life, but that could save your life because you had it knowledge. Unless you attempt to do something beyond that which you've already mastered, you will never grow. What is it that you looked at some point in time and you decided that you couldn't do it? That you talked yourself out of it? You're waiting on your next door neighbor to make it happen for you. It may not happen. If you're waiting on your mother or your father, they may be so ancient in their thinking that they don't understand this opportunity that you have. And if you're waiting on them, it may never get done. You don't beg average people to be phenomenal. You don't beg good people to be phenomenal. You just are phenomenal and you will attract phenomenal. What reason can you remember that you can call on, that you can reach on, that can make you get back up? Find that reason. If you're not where you are, if you're not where you want to be, if you don't have what you want to have, if you're not where you think you should be in this particular place, it has nothing to do with the system, but it has everything to do with the fact that you're not making the sacrifice. I want you to make that dream become a reality, because if you don't, you will be working for somebody else to make their dreams become a reality. Everybody is against you and don't believe in you no more. And let me tell you something, that's a lonely feeling. It's a lonely feeling, particularly people that you're doing it for. Most people take their greatness, take their ideas to the graveyard with them. Listen to me, if it was easy, everybody would do it. There are people right now who are working who don't want to work. There are people who hate their job, they keep getting up and doing it. The wealthiest place on the planet is the graveyard. Because in the graveyard we will find inventions that we never ever were exposed to. Ideas, dreams that never became reality. Hopes and aspirations that were never acted upon. The question is, what are you going to do with your time? What drives you? Greatness is a lot of small things done well. Day after day, workout after workout, obedience after obedience, day after day. When things don't work out for you, when things happen that you could not anticipate, what are the reasons that you can think of that can keep you strong? You will never ever be successful until you turn your pain into greatness, until you allow your pain to push you from where you are to push you to where you need to be. Stop running from your pain and embrace your pain. Your pain is going to be a part of your pride, a part of your product. I challenge you to push yourself. See, it's easy to be on the bottom. It doesn't take any effort to be a loser. It doesn't take any motivation, any drive in order to stay down there at a low level. But it calls for everything in you. You have to You have this opportunity of a lifetime. It means absolutely nothing if you don't take advantage of it in the lifetime of this opportunity. I gotta say that when life knocks you down, try and laugh on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. If you want a thing bad enough to go out and fight for it, to work day and night for it, to give up your time, your peace, and your sleep for it. If all that your dream and scheme is about, and life seems useless and worthless without it. See, it's time now. If you want to make this your decade, you've got to start saying yes to your life. You've got to start saying yes to your dreams, yes to your unfolding future, yes to your potential, as opposed to saying no. When you die, God will eat. Leave no dream left behind, God. Leave no opportunity left behind. When you leave this earth, accomplish every single thing you can accomplish. Listen to me, you're going to be here one day, but you'll never get here if you give up, if you give in, if you quit. And finally, guys, you got to want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe.
So you ever listen to a song or see a video and it just resonates with your life? This video applies to my life incredibly well, and I actually watch it almost every Monday morning to set the tone for my week. I've seen it hundreds of times, and it still gets me going every time I watch it. All right, you may have been asked this question in the entrepreneurial lecture series before, but a lot of people like to think that they're entrepreneurs and say that they're entrepreneurs because it sounds good, but I wonder how many of us are actually hardcore entrepreneurs. I define a hardcore entrepreneur as someone who has such an extreme need to achieve that other people can't always relate to them, maybe even look at you sideways. They consider your passion to be over the top or even unhealthy. I've even been told that your priorities are a little out of whack. Which you have to keep everything in balance, but how many of you does this resonate with? How many of you would consider yourself an entrepreneur based on this? Raise your hands for me. It's only about half of you. How many of you have always expected to be successful in life? For whatever reason, more of you. So you're not entrepreneurs, but you expect to be successful. That's good. How many of you expect to be independently wealthy at a young age? Don't be shy. How old do you think you'll be? 32? Okay. I was with you. Okay, good. If you don't have that kind of deep-rooted conviction and have that expectation, you're clearly not an entrepreneur. The pathway to starting a business from nothing and going through the trials and the failures, it's miserable. And if you don't have that deep-rooted conviction that tells you, I was placed on this earth to build something, you won't make it. So do yourself a favor and go be a lawyer or a doctor or something, which is awesome. You can be very successful doing that, but you may not be an entrepreneur. Okay, going back to the first decade of my career, we're going to make mistakes in life. That's the purpose of life, is to make mistakes and to grow from them. Certainly the entrepreneurial process, you're going to make mistakes. But there are mistakes that we can avoid, and these are 4 bullet points that I felt like I wasted years of my life. I felt like I wasted the first 10 years of my professional career that I'll never get back because of these items. Inaction, recklessness, bad judgment, poor planning, a lack of strategy, and poor choices. So as I mentioned, when I was in your seats, when I was getting ready for to leave college, I was incredibly self-assured in myself. I just wasn't very self-aware. Jeff mentioned that I have a degree in marketing, but it's not a business degree. I played baseball here, and I was focused on baseball and trying to get to the big leagues. And so I settled for a lesser degree in marketing and advertising, which is in the communications department. No offense to the communications department, but they're not set up to train people to be business leaders. I see some people smiling. It's a good degree. I'm just saying they don't train you to run businesses, to start businesses. And so I had these delusions of grandeur on how I'm going to be a multimillionaire, but I had absolutely no game plan. You can have the greatest goals in the world. You can laminate them and stick them on the wall and put Post-it notes on them, but unless you have the skill sets to make something happen, it doesn't make a difference. I tried to start a couple little companies in college. They failed. So about 3 months before we were set to graduate, my wife comes to me and said, okay, don't you think it's time to start interviewing for a job? And I said, what are you talking about? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not going to go get no job. And she said, well, these last couple of things you tried weren't very successful. What's the plan? And I said, well, I don't have a plan. And so I didn't have a choice. I started taking interviews and ended up taking a job back east, which is where I'm from, selling software. I was selling multi-million-dollar software integration. I was traveling Monday through Friday. It was like an 8 to 12-month sales cycle. It was awful. I was terrible at it. I wasn't fit for it. And so I lasted about 8 months, and I quit right before they could fire me. So now I don't have a job. I don't have hardly any money. I have been reading business books and trying to make up for my lack of formal business education and motivational books. And they all seem to say the same thing, right? Positive thinking, that's the key, which is good. But it doesn't get you anywhere on its own. And then find a mentor, which again is good, but in and of itself isn't enough, right? So, but this time around, it was the dot-com boom. And so that was my plan. I still didn't have an idea on how I was going to start a business, but I was going to go join a hot .com, get some stock options, go public. It was the next best thing. I couldn't wait around, though, to find the next Facebook or Yahoo because I had a couple kids at that point. I didn't have any money. So I ended up joining a small .com that was content-based. And I actually sold advertising. I was like the third employee. And I sold advertising to generate revenue for the company. And I was here for 5 years. Great people, great experience. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot about business and about exceeding expectations and the psychology of selling. But after about 4 or 5 years, I realized this is not my dream job. This is never going to fill my entrepreneurial void. And then something happened to me. I wake up one day and I realize I'm 30 years old. I have no identity and I'm an absolute failure. Don't get me wrong, I had like 3 wonderful kids, a beautiful, wonderful wife. I'd been making 6 figures pretty much every year out of college. But I had no identity. I had that entrepreneurial aching inside of me that I just couldn't satisfy. So I felt like just a loser. And I remember just after my 30th birthday, after the party, going down into my basement to my makeshift office in my unfinished basement. And I pulled out the goals that I wrote while I was here. And I started reading through all the things I was going to accomplish by the time I was 30. And I hadn't accomplished a single one of them. I determined that if I didn't do something now, I was going to wake up and I would be 40 years old or 50 years old, and I had never fulfilled my dream. I'd never taken a chance. So I was determined to take a leap, to do something. I didn't know what it was. I didn't have a business I could start still, but I was going to jump on the next opportunity that came my way. Good play that. Start at the beginning.
If you wait for that perfect moment, that perfect time, it's not going to happen. You know what you have to do? You have to create the perfect time and the perfect opportunity and the perfect situation. You're waiting on your next door neighbor to make it happen for you, it may not happen. If you're waiting on your mother or your father, they may be so ancient in their thinking that they don't understand this opportunity that you have. If you're waiting on them, it may never get done.
Okay, so that's what I was going to do. I was going to create this perfect opportunity. So, I mean, talk about wild ambition. I was crazed ambition. You know, when you have this desire inside you to do something with your life, building up, but no game plan, it equals disaster, okay? Like I said, I was going to take the next opportunity that came my way and pounce on it. So, of course, I hear about a friend of mine from back east that had been having this great success in the electronic payment space. So true to my word, I call him on a Thursday. I go meet with him and his business partner on a Friday. I quit my job of 5 years on Saturday, and I start there on Monday without talking to my wife. Any of you guys married? Okay? So if you have a comfortable home, a few kids, steady job, paying 10 grand a month or so, and you don't consult your wife and you just quit, how do you think the response is going to be? It's not very good. She went bananas. She grew up in the military, so really structured. You go to school, you get a job, you live a good life. She just couldn't understand. I was just illogical to her. It didn't make any sense. And she coined what I call the anti-entrepreneurial slogan. She said, you just need to be grateful for what God gives you. You need to learn to be content with what life gives you. I said, be content with what life gives me. That's the worst thing you could say to me. So I took this new job. It was a startup. It seemed perfect. These were young guys. They were ambitious. They were going to go big. They were kind of going to be my mentors. So it worked out. I was going to ride their coattails. I was going to create value in the company. And they were going to beg me to have a seat at their table to join their ownership group. I was going to create so much value. And I did. They had an office in Salt Lake and Layton at that time. And we're doing about 10 to 20 new accounts a month. Over the next 3 years, I opened up 11 offices across 7 states. I traveled constantly, hired about 80 sales guys and gals. And we went from 10 to 20 apps a month to about 1,000 apps a month. So from my perspective, I did my job. I created value. I created this company. So I go to the owner. My friend had since left the company. I said, you got to give me some skin in this game. I mean, I've built this company for you. So he hems and haws and puts me off. And then I come back with an ultimatum. And he goes, okay, I'll tell you what. How much money do you have? I said, I don't have any money. Do you have equity in your home? Yeah, I think so. Okay, well, go find out. So I had $125,000 of equity in my house. So I come back and he goes, okay, give me that money, I'll give you 5% of the company, which looking back was just a terrible deal. But I had this void, this entrepreneurial void that I wanted to say that I was a part of a growing company so bad I'd have taken any deal he presented to me. So I did it. I can't remember if I talked to my wife about that or not, but I did it. So I had some equity. But this didn't quite work out the way that I expected it to. About 2 or 3 months later, he came back to me and said, sales guys are too expensive, the competition's too fierce, our margins are constantly being compressed, we need a business model change. Instead of just going out and knocking on doors or calling business owners to change their merchant services, let's pool together some money and buy our competitors out, bundle this book of business together and sell it off to a big bank. And I thought that was a great idea. The problem is he didn't have any money, and it costs a lot of money to buy other companies. So he wanted me and my brother, who was a sales guy for us, to go out and raise money. He knew we had some relationships back east. And it seemed like a great idea. We trusted him. He had always paid us. He'd always done what he said he was going to do. Our friends and family were going to get interest payments on the money that they loaned him. And then once the company sold, they were going to make a lot of money. It seemed like a great deal. So my brother and I went off and raised about $2 million from friends and family. We gave our own money and we raised this money. Well, after several months go by, we're excited. We want to hear about the progress. Who are some of the companies you're looking at buying? What's the plan? He kind of keeps us on what he said was a need-to-know basis. Several more months go by, still nothing. This time was more like, hey, go pound sand. You do your job, I'll do mine. And then one day, the interest payments stop. So the $2 million that we raised from our friends and family, they're not getting the interest payments anymore. We start getting phone calls. You can probably predict what's about to happen. It's a disaster. We don't know what to do, so I called the SEC. And I said, look, we gave this guy money, but worse, we talked our friends and family into giving him money, and we're not sure what he's done with the money. It unraveled incredibly fast. Turns out he wasn't trying to go buy these businesses, but he tried to start a restaurant and some internet company that both failed. And what's worse was that the SEC said, what are you doing raising money? You don't have licenses to raise money, right? I had no idea you needed licenses to raise money. I didn't get a business degree, remember? Are you guys taught that you're not allowed to just go raise money? You guys, anyone ever been taught that? Okay, there are rules and regulations. And so why am I telling you that? This was maybe the worst point of my life. Humiliating, embarrassing, awful, but I want you guys to know, please, please do not go raise money. I don't care how good the idea is. Unless you understand the rules, unless you're licensed to go raise money, don't raise money from your grandmother. Anybody. You can't do it. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. And you get one reputation in this life. You get your one and only life and your one and only reputation. And now mine are gone, right? Okay, so where am I at now? So I left the safe job, making 6 figures, comfortable lifestyle. I completely leveraged my house. So I'm in debt up to my ears. Now I don't have a job, no income. And the worst part is my reputation is gone, right? You spend 20 years building a reputation with people. People have branded you in their mind, hopefully good. Okay? People that thought I was up here, now they're not so sure. They don't know who I am. I was lower than I ever thought possible. It was absolutely miserable. And my wife, as angry as she was with me for quitting my job, thank heavens, although she had every right to come in and lay into me and call me a chump and tell me how foolish I was to risk our money and our friends and family's money, she never once said anything like that. She never gave me a hard time about it. She was actually concerned about me. It was a pretty hard time. But one day she came and said, Dave, are you sure you're cut out to be a businessman? Maybe you should consider another line of work. She didn't mean to, but that cut me really deep. So I'm going through humiliation, pain, self-doubt, anger. My wife has now lost faith in me. I've lost faith in myself. And now I have to live with the torment that I'm the reason that these people lost money. I didn't touch the money. I didn't want them to lose their money. But they would have never even heard of this guy, much less give him their money, had I not vouched for him. I'm angry at God, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm angry at God because I think I'm living a good life. Why didn't you intervene and tell me not to do this? Give me some indication that I shouldn't do this. Go ahead and play that.
When the messenger of misery visits you, what are you going to do? What will keep you in the game? Everybody is against you and don't believe in you no more. Let me tell you something. That's a lonely feeling. It's a lonely feeling. Particularly people that you're doing it for. You will never ever be successful until you turn your pain into greatness, until you allow your pain to push you from where you are to push you to where you need to be. Stop running from your pain and embrace your pain. Your pain is one of your fault, of your pride, or one of your problems. I'm not challenging you to push yourself.
Okay, so for the next year or so, I'm a mess. I'm completely broke. I'm just trying to make ends meet. I'm trying to figure out some way to dig my family out of this hole. I take on some consulting jobs, and then one day my neighbor is talking to me, and he's telling me about his brother who has just started this company, and it's on fire. He thought I could help their sales team. And so, despite the fact that I still believed I was an entrepreneur, I went and interviewed for this job, and we did hit it off right away. And it actually breathed life back into me because I did feel like I could help them. I got knee-deep into this company and started helping them generate their sales. And so, what is my mantra? I go to the owners and I say, hey, I can help you build this company, but I want a seat at the table. I want some skin in the game. I want some ownership. So again, they come back to me and they say, okay, 50 grand. I can't even remember how much ownership that bought me, but give us 50 grand. I didn't have 50 grand. I had nothing. I go to the bank and I talk to the bank about my options, and they said, you know what, we may be able to get you an SBA loan. And I did. I mean, I was broke, and I got an SBA loan for 50 grand. So I handed over the 50 grand. I was back in business. I was an owner in a thriving company. Everything was great. I'm not exaggerating when I say that within 30 days, that company was out of business. That $50,000 was gone. So what's different about this one is I sat in meetings. I knew they had some cash flow issues, but they were growing quickly. They had collection issues, but they had a bridge loan, a financial partner to give them bridge loans to help them work out their lumpiness in their cash cycles. I've seen the contracts, and so I was comfortable giving them the 50 grand. I'm not a complete moron. Close, but not a complete moron. But half the financial partners, the one that mattered, decided that they don't care about the contracts. They're no longer going to extend these bridge loans. And so what was the company going to do? They could try to sue them, but they couldn't even make payroll, much less hire an attorney. So here I am again. I'm done, okay? So now I'm just, I'm numb. I need to come to grips with, hey, you're a pretty good salesperson. Just go get a job, right? You're going to build a company for someone else, but at least you can sleep at night. At least you can feed your kids and pay your mortgage. Let's go play this. Okay, so it's 2007, 2008. I don't know if you guys remember, but the housing market crashed during this time. So then what happens? The bank that offered me $125,000 on my home equity line is calling on that. My house isn't worth that anymore. So they're calling on that. They're pressuring me. Now I've lost the $50,000. I have no job. I have no income. I literally don't know what I'm going to do. One day I get one of these credit card cash advance checks in the mail. You guys know what those are? They're checks that are pre-printed to you with like $5,000 and free money, right? They have like 8,000% interest on them. And so without my wife knowing, I started cashing those to float us, right? We're headed for bankruptcy. I don't know what to do. I'm just trying to float to survive. So at this point, if I come and I help mentor some of the business students here from time to time, if I'm mentoring one of you and you tell me this story, I'm going to say, go get a job, man. Give up the charade. Get a job. If I were to tell my son, I would say, go get a job. I should have probably gone to get a job. For some reason, this time, though, I just was mad. I was just upset and more determined than ever. I went back into my basement in the evenings, and I was trying to say, okay, what skill sets do I have? Okay, this is absolute crunch time. I have no more failures left. What experience can I draw on? What skill sets do I have? So my first job, ERP software. I didn't know how to program. I'm not going to develop an ERP platform. Content-based advertising. I don't know anything about anything that anyone cares about that I can sell advertising about. Electronic payments. Okay, I knew this industry. The problem was the market segments that we were going after were the small retail companies, $10,000, $20,000 a month, hardly any money in it. So no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get the numbers to work to start a business in this. But I kept pushing and I kept pushing. And then one night when I'm down there on the verge of tears, I look on my desk amongst the papers and I see this envelope. And it's a merchant billing statement. This company, right before they shut their doors that I gave the $50,000 to, gave me their merchant billing statement. He knew that I had had some experience in this industry, and he wanted me to check out their rates. They thought they were getting railroaded. They couldn't get any service from their provider. So I opened this envelope up, and for the first time, a light bulb goes off, and I recognize a clear path how I can turn my pathetic, sad career around. This was a company outside of what I was used to. They were processing $800,000-900,000 a month. It was an entirely new segment that I just wasn't exposed to before. Now, all of a sudden, those numbers looked really nice. So I quickly went and contacted my two guys that used to work with me in my previous company, and we launched this company. We realized there were entire business segments. Think of direct sales, infomercials, cruise lines, airlines, large internet companies. Anybody that conducts business non-face-to-face and has large tickets and large volumes. They were underserved because they were high risk. Because if they go out of business, the payment processor is accountable for them. So because they were high risk, they had incredibly high rates, and they weren't served well. And so at that point, we started to build our business model around how to serve those soft spots. And since 2008, we've worked very hard to become market leaders in that space. I was so close to giving up. I mean, as you can imagine. Everybody that I knew was telling me to give up and just go get a job. But because I hung on just a little bit longer, I don't know if it's something about you have to earn it. There's some level, there's some benchmark you have to hit. Everyone's different. But if you hang on long enough, you can make it. And because I was able to hang on long enough, we now process billions and billions of dollars a year. And I look back on all those losses that it was so humiliating at the time, and I thought I was just wasting money. It turns out they were just educational payments. I spent $125,000 to learn the electronic payment space, and then I spent another $50,000 to discover the niche that we would build our business on. And those educational payments have yielded millions and millions of dollars to my family. Success begets success. If you can just hang on long enough, once you get your first success, the whole universe starts to work in your favor. I know you've heard that expression before, and I had heard it, and I read it in all these motivational books, and I thought it was nothing but fluff. But once you can get to your first level of success and have that story, the whole world opens up to you. things just serendipitously fall in your lap. The success from CMS parlayed into a relationship with FFG. It also is parlayed into a relationship with ControlPad. And there's other companies that we're looking into, okay? Look, there's nothing special about me. I mean, I'm rarely, if ever, the smartest person in the room. But I hate to lose, and I'm incredibly stubborn. And I try not to ever give up. And that's the one thing that I would encourage for you guys. I know this is getting kind of dark, but the moment you're ready to quit is usually the moment right before the miracle happens. Just don't give up. And I know we're short on time. Here's what my parting thoughts with you. Here's my success formula. Right out of college or even in college, okay, I wish somebody would have grabbed me when I was sitting in these seats and told this to me. Take a few jobs right away, right out of school. Take a few jobs. Find out what you like, what you're good at, what you're passionate about. I know you've heard this before, but what you can replicate, okay? And then you go and you find the best company you can in that business, in that industry, and you go work there 2, 3, 5 years. Work there. Learn what makes them a market leader. And then try to discover what their soft spots are. What don't they care about? What's their underserved markets? Okay, nothing deceitful. You're not trying to take anything away from that company, but there are things I guarantee that cost too much, that don't have enough margin, that they just don't care about. That's what you focus on. Build your business plan around serving those soft spots, because you're already an expert in everything else that industry needs. But now you become an expert in the soft areas. And you pound it, and you pound it, and you become a market leader in that space. Don't do what I did. Don't sit around begging for a seat at the table at someone else's company, for the crumbs at the table. Don't wait and sit around waiting for a mentor or God to magically tell you what to do. God's not going to come and give you a vision and tell you what to do. It doesn't work that way. It requires action and risk on your part. And then learn an industry, find a soft spot, and go to work. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate your time.